There aren't many similarities in the last two seasons for the Avalanche, but one of them is their success on the waiver wire, and this past season the face of that success was Patrik Nemeth. Nemeth was picked up off the waiver wire just days before the start of the season and came in as a little bit of a surprise, but right off the bat, Jared Bednar said he expected Nemeth to be in the top 6. Initially, that was met with a bit of suspicion as there were high hopes for some of the Avs rookie prospects, but ultimately, in hindsight, now that we see the results from players like Chris Bigras and Duncan Siemens, it was a good thing we ended up getting Nemeth. Nemeth was not brought in to produce offense. He was brought in to be a steady member of the defense and ideally play bottom pairing minutes. At least that's where he was at his best. And he would also get significant time on the penalty kill. But it's easy to forget just how thin the Avalanche's defense was at the start of the season, with players like Fedor Tutin and Francois Beauchemin no longer on the team. There were a lot of holes, and the Avs had yet to make the Duchesne trade to pick up Sam Girard, so Nemeth started the season in the top 4, and he would actually do pretty well, picking up 3 points in his first 4 games with the Avalanche. Now, as expected of someone who has over 100 NHL games before he even suited up for the Avs without an NHL goal, that didn't last. Unfortunately, starting in late October through roughly the middle of November, Nemeth would get a slew of different injuries, including a shoulder injury, a lower body injury, and then an additional undisclosed one that, while at first they didn't keep him out of the lineup for too long, would eventually knock him out for about a month through November into December. When Nemeth returned, Girard had found his place within the Avalanche organization, and Nemeth started out with significantly lower minutes than he had earlier in the year. Beyond this, by now we knew that Nemeth's shoulder injury was more severe than we had originally thought, and while it was able to be played through, it was an issue that was going to bug him for the rest of the season. Despite that, it didn't take long for Bednar to start trusting Nemeth again, and he quickly rose up to higher minutes, often playing well over 20 minutes, especially at times when other defensemen for the Avs were injured. As far as offensive production, while Nemeth would continue to pick up points here and there throughout the season, and even set a career high for himself in points, many of the points weren't really that involved in the offense. Basically, if you're on the ice with McKinnon enough, you're going to get some points. On the other hand, he did score 3 goals on the year, which is a career high for him, not just professionally, but as far as I can tell in every league he's ever played in since the age of 15. So that's nice, I guess. But no, what made Nemeth such a valuable piece to the Avalanche's coaching staff was his rock-steady play in the defensive zone and his ability to kill penalties. Now, it does feel a little bit like a trap when you look at Nemeth's stats. His possession numbers are not good, and from the eye test, it's clear that his puck skill definitely has caused some issues for the Avalanche. But he does do a lot of good things as well, blocking shots, playing physical defensively, rubbing out opponents, especially in front of the net. Those are things that the Avalanche need. As I said earlier, it's something that definitely works better as a bottom pairing guy where he can get away with a little bit less of that puck skill and things like that. I go back and forth with Nemeth personally. He can play a role for this team, and I do think he can be useful, but he's a commodity that isn't exactly rare in the NHL. On the season, Nemeth had 3 goals and 12 assists for 15 points in 68 games, and he also added 1 playoff assist in the 6 playoff games. Based on his play this year, I'm going to give him a grade of a B-, and this B- is a cautionary one. If you keep him in a bottom pairing role or at highest a number 4 type player, he can be a good solid piece. If you put too much trust in him and try and play him higher in the lineup, too big of a role, he's not going to help you. I know 15 points isn't much, but it does seem like a stretch for him to even score at that pace again in the coming season. And beyond that, that shoulder injury we talked about earlier, he needed to have surgery on that shoulder in the off season. At this point, it's still not even clear if he's going to be ready for the start of the season or not, so we're kind of just going to have to play things by ear at the start of the year. The Avs did extend him for 1 year at $2.5 million, which I think is a very solid contract for Nemeth. You kind of just moved it down the line here. He can be that useful piece this year, but you haven't tied him up long term and stuck yourself with with him if you decide that you don't really have room for him at the end of the season. That is the end of this player's season review. Thank you for watching. If you want to see Nemeth highlights, you know they're right up there. I know most of the player reviews I've done so far aren't that entertaining, but with camp just around the corner, I'm going to be kicking it up a notch and doing a bunch of videos over the next 10 days or so we'll get into those more exciting players soon. I'm Rudo3, and it's always hockey season somewhere.